All right, so in this video, we are going to be reviewing working with percents. So we're going to start out just by looking at the percent proportion, although we're not going to deal with this very much in this video here. So here we have A is P percent of B. So when we have it like that as a proportion, we can go A over B equals P over 100. Now, if you're asking the question what percent of 50 is 25, we can actually use numbers. So our part is going to be the 25 and our base B is going to be 50, or total if you want to look at it that way. And then also we have it here in a diagram. So our 100%, our total is 50, and then the percent that we're looking for, our part is 25. And then if we're going to solve this, we would do cross multiply and divide. So we would do 25 times 100 and then divided by 50. Quick review of some vocab here. Fraction. Now that's going to be amount over total is one way of thinking about it. Number versus total number of pieces. So number of pieces that you've eaten versus the total number of pieces that way. So you can look at it kind of those ways. There's lots of different ways of looking at fractions. There's a division idea in fractions and all that type of stuff. So now decimals are special fractions. So decimals are fractions that are over 10, over 100, over 1,000, over a million. It's over a 1 followed by some zeros. So over here, that's 0.1, that's 1/10, 100th, 1,000ths. And so if you just think of decimals as special fractions, it does help your math knowledge when it comes to going back and forth between the two. Now, percents are even extra special fractions. So your percents are these fractions here. They're only the over 100 fractions, or 2 decimal places here. So percents, they're over 100. Now what had happened long ago is some of the mathematicians, they were dealing with a bunch of percents and they got tired of writing the over 100. And so they just shortened it up to this symbol here, what we commonly call the percent symbol. So if you break it down to its root words, per can mean divided by, and cent does mean 100. So divided by 100. For cent, think century or cents in a dollar. Quick review here, going from decimals to fractions. So with fractions, we have 2 numbers after the decimal. So that's going to be 2 zeros after the 1 when we put our denominator on there. So 0.53 is 53 over 100 there. And then going from either a fraction written like this or a decimal, the percent is going to be move the decimal place over 2 spots, makes 53%. Or if you already have it over 100, your top part is the percent. The numerator is the percent if the denominator is 100, because it's already written as per 100 or percent. Now here's some common percents versus fractions that come up often. Pause the video and kind of study this a little bit. Take a few minutes, see how many you can memorize. Now we're going to look at the percent equation. So if you have your notebook out and you're keeping notes and you have your formulas, this would be the formula that you write down there. So we have up here, A is P percent of B. And so here it is, A equals P percent times B is the algebra formula type idea that we have there. Now for the number example, we have what percent of 50 is 25? So the amount there, that goes to 25, and the B, that's your total or your base, that's going to become a 50 there for the formula. And then we also have it here as a model. There's our 100% total, that's 50, and then our part that we're looking at, that's 25, and we're looking for what percent that is there. So let's look at this example. We have a sweater that normally costs $49.99. It's on sale for 25% off. And the question is, what is the sale price of the sweater? So when we get to check out, when we're getting ready to pay our money, we normally don't really care. I mean, it's nice to know how much we get off, but that's not really what we're concerned on. We're concerned about what percent we're actually going to pay. So if we're going to get 25% off, how much are we going to have to pay? Well, that's going to be 75%. So check it out. You start by having to pay 100%. And then there's a sale that takes 25% off of the 100%. So 100% minus 25% makes 75%. So now we can go through and just flat out write an equation for this. Okay, so what do we know? We know the 75, we know the percentage, and we know how much we started with. Okay, so now we're just going to translate this straight into an equation. So what value? So we're looking for this value. We don't know what it is, so we're just going to label it a variable. So you can use a, x, whatever it is. Is normally in math means equals, so we have a equals, and then 75%. So we are going to be doing calculations here, so we're not going to write it as a percent, we're going to write it as a decimal. So we do need to move the decimal place over 2 spots. To do calculations with percents, we change them to decimals. Of, when it's all by itself there, normally means multiplication, and then 49.99. So we're ready to go right now. It's just, it tells us how to find what we're looking for. So we just go to our calculator and we just calculate 0.75 times 49.99 and we get $37.49. So this question is asking what percent of 90 is 63? So what do we know? We know the start amount and we know our end amount, and we're trying to find the percent there. So we're just going to read this and write it down straight out as an equation. So here we go. What percent? So that's going to be P. We don't know what it is yet. We're going to call it P for percent. Of in math, when it's kind of all by itself like this, normally means multiply, so times, and then 90. And then is in math normally means equal sign, and then 63 goes next. And boom, there we go. We have an equation. So we want to get P by itself, so it looks like this. So we're going to undo this 90 with a divide by 90. So if you know how to do this in your head, great. If not, go to the calculator. 63 divided by 90, and that's going to be 0.7. So notice the question, though, is asking what percent, not what decimal, what percent. So we do need to change this decimal here to a percent. So we're going to move the decimal place over 2 spots, and that's going to be 70% there. Now, if you do like using the formula that we talked about earlier, here it is here. The A, that's your part that you ended with, which is 63. B is the base. That's your start amount there, which was 90 there. So check it out. We got the same equation here, except the 63 is on the opposite side there, but we're still going to divide by 90 to get 0.7 and then change it to a percent there. So here we go. After a battle, the Empire had about 30% of their TIE fighters remaining. After counting, it was 66. How many did they have before the battle? So this one is going to take quite a bit of unpacking to do. So we do need to rephrase what we're actually looking for. So we have 30%. So we know that. 30% of what? 30% of what they started with. And so we don't know what that number is. That's what we're looking for there. So 30% of their start amount. And that, in this case here, it is 66 TIE fighters in this case here. Okay, so now that we have it rephrased down to, we kind of boiled it down to the meat or what's important from the entire question, now we can go ahead and write an equation. So what is known? Well, we know the percent. We don't know of how many, and we know that that percent is going to be 66. So now we're just going to read this out and write an equation here. So 30%. So we don't do calculations with percent, so we are going to change that to a decimal. So move the decimal place over 2 spots, so it's 0.3 of, in math normally means multiply. And then what number? Well, we don't know what that number is, so we're just going to give it a variable, b if you want. And then is in math means equals, and then 66. So there we go. We have an equation there. So we want to get b by itself. So b is being multiplied by 0.3. So we're going to unmultiply or divide by 0.3 to the 66. So in our calculator, we can go like this. And there's other ways of doing it too. You can do 660 divided by 3 if you want. So either way, we ended up with 220 TIE fighters that the Empire started with. So if you do like using that formula that we had, and you have it in your notebook, there it is here. So your part was 66, the percent was 0.3, and then you're looking for the start amount or the B for base there. And again, you're still going to unmultiply by 0.3, so you divide by 0.3 there. So here's a bunch of examples here if you're trying to find a percent. If you like the proportion method, you can do this, and then it's just cross multiply and then divide using the equation type. You can look at that here, and the example, what percent of 6.3 is 3.5? So 3.5 over 6.3, or 3.5 equals what percent of 6.3 there. If you're trying to find the part, what is 32% of 125? So we don't know what this number is. We know the total was 125, the percent was 32 over 100, or it can look like this, straight up multiply after you change this to a decimal, 0.32 times 125. And then if you're trying to find the base or your start amount or your total, 25% of what number is 11? So 11 was the part, B, that was the base or the total, and then 25 per 100, cross multiply 11 times 100 divided by 25, or you can write it as an equation that way as well.